So once again, happy Friday, everybody. Good to see you all this week, or Friday anyway. And so let's get started like we normally do. Short period of bell meditation. Wherever you are behind your avatar, just get into a nice meditation posture. And as I ring the Ching bell, the idea, focus on the sound of the bell. Really try to get your deep listening and your concentration going so we can all absorb some Dharma today. You're going to get distracted. It happens to all of us. When it does, I just want you to gently remind yourself and go back to focusing on the sound of the bell. So short period of meditation, then I'll do the 3 recitations and then on with the talk for today. So I'll give you a moment, get into a nice posture, and we'll begin at the sound of the bell. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the teacher. I go for refuge to the Dharma, the teaching. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the taught. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I have taken refuge in the Buddha. I have taken refuge in the Dharma. I have taken refuge in the Sangha. 3 pure precepts. Cease to do harm. Do only good. Do good for others. Bodhisattva vow. However innumerable all beings are, I vow to lead them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it completely. Swaha. So once again, happy Friday. Good to see you all today. So this has been Animal Week, or this is going to be the end of Animal Week. We had donkeys and cows on Monday. Today we're going to have snake. So we want to cover as much of the animal kingdom as we can. Today is just called grasping the snake. Relating the ideals and the concepts of Buddhist texts and Buddhist sutras and Buddhist teachings in general, with some of them being written, 2,000 plus years ago, when we're trying to relate those ideals and concepts to a contemporary Western culture, it's important that the listener doesn't develop a wrong understanding of what is being presented. Because within the teachings is intent. And very often it's an intent that goes beyond the word by word text. Right? We have to see beyond the words. And this issue isn't unique to now either, right? To our contemporary time. The Buddha, offering a new paradigm of human behavior in the midst of the long-held Hindu beliefs and practices that he grew up with, showed the wisdom and skillful means that was needed to guide practitioners in his time and in our time. He made it clear that a person must engage their intuitive wisdom. This is the wisdom that's developed through practice and through experience and through insight. And to do this in order to test the efficacy of what they learned through their study or through a Dharma talk, so that the ideas that presented don't end up being used wrongly or inappropriately, if you will. Excuse me. And they must also put what they have learned into practice so that through experience, it can be verified, right? We talk about that all the time, experiential verification. Well, the Buddha offered a parable to kind of illustrate this point, and it's called the parable of the water snake. Therein lies the snake. Thus have I heard. Just as a person walking about seeking a water snake, going after a water snake, searching for a water snake, were he to see a large water snake, he might restrain it tightly with a forked stick. Having restrained it tightly by the neck with the forked stick, the water snake might wrap itself around the hand, arm, or other limbs of that person, but from this cause, the person would not die nor experience pain akin to dying. What is the reason for this? It is because of the right grasp of the water snake. In the same way, some people study the Dhamma, including the discourses, the chants, the explanations, the verses, the sayings, what has been said, the birth stories, the marvelous teachings, and the miscellanies. But having studied the Dhamma, they do examine the meaning of these teachings with intelligence. These teachings that have been examined with intelligence are accepted with comprehension. They do not study the Dhamma for the purpose of criticizing others, nor for the purpose of merely quoting. So they do achieve the good result for which purpose the Dhamma ought to be studied. And these teachings that are rightly grasped lead to their welfare and happiness for a long time. What is the reason for this? It is because of the right grasp of the teaching. Therefore, you should understand the meaning of what I have said, and you should remember it in this way. Were you not to understand the meaning of what I have said, you should question me about it or one of the learned. So that's the parable of the water snake. It's all about how do you grasp things. And, here it's talking both a physical thing in a snake and call it an intellectual thing, right? The Dhamma. There's a basic question that's kind of being asked here. Do you want to know or do you want knowledge? It's kind of the difference between, we talk about information and knowledge. So if you just want to know, well, that's okay. That can be remembered. It can be recited. It can be regurgitated as information masquerading as knowledge. quoting a sutra, or maybe chanting the Heart Sutra. These will be empty endeavors without comprehension of the depth of the meaning of what is being said or chanted. It can be the difference between being a donkey that says it is a cow or really being the cow. The second can empower you with culturally valid expressions of calm and well-being and of compassion and generosity. And this is knowledge, and it's knowledge that comes from a combination of study, practice, and experience. And it will lead to the arising of wisdom over time, right, with commitment. It is the catalyst of a life that can get as close to human excellence as possible, while also serving as a wise and compassionate example of what you do matters. You have to ask yourself a question. It doesn't matter if you're reading something, watching a movie, listening to a Dharma talk, whatever. Here's the question. Are you effectively grasping what is presented? Basically, am I getting it right? To rightly grasp the effectiveness, for example, of a meditation practice, you got to actually practice meditation. Recognizing the value of the Four Ennobling Truths, or the Three Characteristics of Existence, or the Six Refinements, or any of the other profound Dharma lessons without putting them into practice is not right grasping of the teachings. This is not just an intellectual exercise, right? It's an action philosophy. It's a get out there and do what needs to be done philosophy. Without realizing the practices in your moment-to-moment existence, you cannot realize the encompassing and corrective value they hold. Without making these practices part of the fabric of your engagements with others and with yourself, they will have no value in the alleviation of suffering and the promotion of human flourishing, whether it's yours or anybody else's. I say, as Buddhists, we practice 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, period. We may be on vacation, but that doesn't change how we act all the time, the practices that we engage in all the time. So there is a propensity in the West to make Buddhism a purely intellectual exercise. Some scholars and academics even, they write books and they make documentaries about Buddhist psychology and philosophy without ever having actual experience with it as a moment-to-moment pursuit or practice. And they might believe in the value of the ideas, but they fail to value the practice. Even some Buddhist monastics hold to the idea that only the most intelligent can grasp the subtle and esoteric messages buried deep in Buddhist texts. Some believe that only those who take monastic vows and spend their lives studying and practicing Buddhist philosophy can reach the ultimate end, if you will, things like enlightenment or nirvana or whatever. Those individuals haven't grasped the snake rightly either. The Buddha did not mean for Buddhism to be theory without action, or he didn't mean it to benefit only a chosen few. Buddhism is all about action. It's actions that can be taken by anyone who is motivated to study, to practice, and to experience. So it is up to you and me as practitioners to make practice a valuable tool for the wholesome transition and transformation of yourself and the world around you. There was something else that was mentioned in the parable, and I want to repeat what it said here. They do not study the Dhamma for the purpose of criticizing others. This is something you'll find not often, but enough to make it kind of uncomfortable in Buddhism in the West. So I want to say something about using the Buddhist traditions to attack or criticize others. In the West, as it has been in no other period of Buddhist history, every tradition is represented somewhere in America. You can find it. So we have to accept that our tradition isn't the only tradition around, right? So here at the Buddhist Center, they set this up with exactly that in mind, that all traditions are welcome. And by the way, that doesn't include just Buddhist traditions, right? It doesn't matter to me what religion or faith you follow or belief system you follow. If you come here and you sit and you listen and you're respectful and you get in with us and have some fun with it, that's great, because we all learn, right? We all learn from it. So at the Buddha Center, then, we welcome all traditions, and I'm going to put it nicely as I can, we don't put up with the attitude of mine is better than yours. You might think it, but it's definitely something you don't want to say, right? And you want to get over thinking it too. Because we won't get into that mine is better than yours discussion because it's not necessary, right? So to make Buddhist practice and philosophy real, you've got to strive to attain a right grasp of the teachings. And the way to do that is through study and through practice and through experience. Because the omission of any one of those, study, practice, experience, will result in delusion. Because if you try to only practice and you haven't studied, well, then what are you practicing? And if you only study and you don't practice, then why are you studying? And if you don't do either one of those, study or practice, how are you going to get the experience necessary to develop wisdom? Oh, I'll throw in here now. Is this easy? No. But has over 2,500 years of experience proved its value? Yeah. So we talked a lot about right grasping, grasping the water snake correctly, grasping the teachings correctly. What about practice? I mean, how can you actually practice this? Well, thank goodness for the Eightfold Path, because it points us right to right view, or appropriate view, if you will. In order to grasp teachings rightly, and by the way, this is not only Dharma teachings, to grasp anything in life rightly, you've got to practice appropriate view. You've got to see things as they are, in their reality, without your misperceptions, without your desires, so then you can see, does that teaching work? Do I have the right grasp of that teaching? And by the way, if you don't think you do, ask. Because that's what questions are for, right? Now I'm going to step to the pandemic. It is critical during this pandemic that we all develop and maintain a right grasp of what is actually going on in the world around us. Because only by getting that right grasp, that right understanding, if you will, we won't know what we need to do in order to limit the suffering being caused. So we want to listen to experts that we have discerned through our own efforts, right? That we can trust, or that we feel we can trust, right? So these are the people we want to listen to. A big example of this is this idea of wearing face masks and people just getting all upset that they need to wear face masks when they're outside in public, especially when they're in a store or, a bar or whatever. There are people that have the right grasp of it, in the idea that I'm not only doing this for me to keep me healthy, but I'm actually doing it more to help keep others healthy. And that this is not an infringement on my rights. And The most ridiculous thing I heard today was somebody said on Twitter, oh, but the masks are a health hazard because we can't get as much oxygen into our lungs, and they can cause us to have bad breathing. Well, that's certainly not a right grasp. So getting the right grasp of the situation, especially like this pandemic, that right grasp is what leads us to doing the right things, the appropriate things, the things that will not only help us, but help our families, our friends, and those other folks that we don't even know. So grasp things as rightly as you can. Do whatever you need to find out, am I getting the right teaching? Am I getting the right lesson? Am I getting the right message? Am I getting the right instruction?